Hello, my friends. It's Nick. It's the ASMR nerd. And today, it's time for a good old-fashioned video game ramble. Today, this is going to be the 2023 installment of what is becoming a bit of an annual tradition here on the channel. That is where I talk about my top 10 plus a few most anticipated video games of the year. And this year I thought it would also be fun to look back at the previous year and go through that list briefly and just see how that panned out as well. Whether my top games of 2022, well, first of all, if they even released in 2022, and then also if they did, whether they lived up to my expectations, whether they earned their place, or whether they justified their placing in my list of last year. So we'll start off with that, a little look back, and then we will move ahead looking forward to the top games of 2023. And of course, this is my personal list, and your lists might be very different. There might be games that you are absolutely, incredibly excited for that don't show up on my list at all. And that's okay. We all have different things, right? And there's some games I probably don't know about as well, especially in this day and age. There's just so many cool indie games and like AA kind of tier games coming out all the time. It's really hard to stay on top of it all, but I've got a list here that I think looks pretty good. From a personal standpoint, I'm pretty excited about each and every one of these games. Not quite as excited, though, as I am to tell you about this video's sponsor. Yeah, that's right, you guessed it. Into the AM. Into the AM sell awesome shirts. They sell other awesome stuff too, but what they're best known for, perhaps, is their beautiful graphic tees, like this one that I'm wearing right here. Isn't it gorgeous? Look at the beautiful colors. Look at the striking design. I tell you, I get more compliments on my Into the AM graphic tees than on anything else that I wear. And not only do they look awesome, but they feel great too. Like, they are soft, they are nicely fitted, but they're not like too tight. They're a little bit stretchy, so they just feel really good. They're super comfy, and they're also really easy to take care of. You don't have to worry about them shrinking because they're pre-shrunk. So you can just throw them in the washing machine, throw them in the dryer, and you're good to go. So really, they hit everything that you could possibly want from a graphic tee. But Into the AM sells more than just graphic tees as well. And I feel like I'm doing the rest of their clothing line a disservice by only ever talking about the graphic tees. But they have super comfortable joggers, super comfortable basic tees without the graphics, just everyday wear, solid color, really comfy tees. They got shorts, they got underwear, they got hats, they got all kinds of stuff. So, my friends, maybe you were a little disappointed with your Christmas gifts this year. Or maybe you got some money over the holidays and you're looking to buy something nice for yourself. Well, then I encourage you, click on through the link down below at the top of the video description or pinned in the top comment and see what Into the AM has for you. Because I promise you, you'll find something that you love there. They are getting new designs in all the time. Exciting, beautiful, comfortable, easy to care for stuff. And even better, I got something for you. I have a 10% off discount for you off your entire order. Not just the graphic tees, but everything on their website. 10% off using the link down below at the top of the video description. And if you use that link, you will also be supporting me and this channel here, which I really, really appreciate. And it's a nice win-win. Channel gets support, you guys get awesome clothes and a 10% discount. And Into the AM, our sponsor, is happy as well. So make sure you go check out those links down below for 10% off your entire order at Into the AM. Thanks, Into the AM, for sponsoring this here video. And with that said, we're going to talk about video games, but you guys can keep watching, keep peeping my beautiful Into the AM shirt while we're talking about it. This is one of my favorite, like all-time favorite Into the AM shirts of all the ones that they've sent me over the last year and a couple of years now, almost 2 years. Anyway, so let's go back and talk about 2022 to start with. So 2022, I think, was characterized in the video gaming world, at least, by delays. Lots and lots of delays. This isn't too surprising given that 2022 was 2 years into the pandemic and a lot of that COVID-related, upset and disruption that happened, especially towards the beginning of the pandemic, was finally catching up with a lot of these developers. And so, a lot of games that were scheduled for the year got pushed back into this year, 2023. So you'll see a trend that there are a handful of games, at least on 2023's list, that originally appeared on my list last year. Anyway, let's just go through my list here from last year and see how it all turned out. At number 10 on my list from 2022, I had Horizon Forbidden West. This was kind of a funny pick because I don't have a PS5. And this game did come out early in 2022, actually. And by all accounts, it was really, really good. But I still haven't played it. So I have no opinion on it other than what I've heard from like the game's press and from people I've talked to. It sure is a beautiful looking game though. Holy cow. I'm pretty sure it won Digital Foundry's best graphics of the year for 2022, which is saying something because those guys are very picky with their graphics. They know what they're looking for. So anyway, I do hope that Horizon Forbidden West eventually comes to PC. I suspect it will. And when it does, I look forward to playing it because, it was pretty well reviewed. So I think that definitely justified its place on that list last year. At number 9, Tunic. Now, this was a funny little game that I did play a bit of. And from what I gather, the people who really liked it a lot. I streamed a bit of it earlier in the year last year, and I can tell there was a lot of love put into that game. For those who don't know, it's kind of a Zelda-like adventure game with a sort of isometric perspective. The graphics were very pleasing. It was hard. It was a lot harder than I expected it to be. And I kind of bounced off it, I think maybe because of the difficulty a little bit. My understanding is if you really dive into that game, it gets crazy in terms of the meta puzzles and all the sort of crazy hidden elements of the game. But I love the aesthetic of the manual pages that you were picking up because they look just like an NES manual, right down to the dots of the ink printing and that kind of stuff. Notes in the margins. Really cool little game. But I did not play that far into it. I'd like to get back to it. I did hear that they just put out an easy mode, basically, for people like me, perhaps, who just want to experience it, not sort of struggle with it so much. So I could just get good, but instead I might just go back to that game with the easy mode. But critically well reviewed, and overall I think definitely worth the spot on the list. At number 8 last year, I put Stray. Stray. This is the cat game that everyone lost their mind about in the summer of 2022. And I've played it here on the channel. You Stray fans there, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Nick, you can't talk about Stray. You never finished that game on the channel. You're right. I didn't, but I will. I know it's been forever, but I do intend to come back to Stray. I want to finish it up. I know it's not a long game. I don't think I have a lot more to do. But that game has so much heart. It's got really beautiful environments, really cool atmosphere, obviously an adorable protagonist, and it was critically well acclaimed as well. It got nominated, I think, for Game of the Year at the Game Awards, which I will say it is pretty slight in terms of its mechanics. It's really just a simple platformer with some very rudimentary puzzle solving, and then a very cool environment. So, but clearly the developer knew what they were aiming for. They nailed it, and I'd really like to see more from Blue 12 in the future, now that they have some foundation to build on, and some notoriety in the games industry. So Stray was a very pleasant, well-executed game, and I think it deserves its place on that list. At number 7 last year, I had Baldur's Gate 3, the very long-awaited sequel to the classic Baldur's Gate 2, BioWare's Baldur's Gate 2, running on the Infinity Engine, which came out in, 1999, I think. So Baldur's Gate 3 is being developed by Larian. They have the Divinity series, and it was supposed to hit, it's been in early access for quite some time. I shouldn't say it was supposed to release last year. I don't think they ever promised. I don't think they ever specifically said, but it did not come out last year in a 1.0 release. And I've been staying away from the early access of that game because a game like that, I want to experience sort of the full package. I don't really want to replay large parts of story in a heavily story-driven game like that. So, but suffice to say, I am still very much looking forward to it. It is anticipated to exit early access with a 1.0 release this year, 2023, and so it will be appearing on this year's list. We'll talk about it a little more then. At number 6, Total War Warhammer 3. This is another game which I touched briefly in 2022. I played a little bit of, but I never really dove into it the way I wanted. And this maybe shouldn't come as any huge surprise because I actually never really got into Total War Warhammer 1 or 2, which is weird because I love both Warhammer and Total War games. But it's been quite some time since I really sunk my teeth into either. So like historically, I really love those things, but I just didn't, I guess, have the gaming time or make the space for a sprawling epic like Warhammer 3. I know the Immortal Empires mode that they released is supposed to be a hell of a thing, and maybe one day I'll dive into that. I will say, now that I've got like beefy 4090 and the PC, I fired it up with that. Looks and runs like a dream. That is a demanding game in terms of its performance, and on my 3080 previously, it actually did struggle at 4K at the highest kind of settings. So yeah, I'd like to go back to it though, if I ever have the time. We'll see. But those games they're so cool. I really do appreciate that they exist and that they do as well as they do. And by all accounts, Warhammer 3 was supposed to be pretty good as well. So far, we're 5 games into this list from last year, and we're 5 for 5 in terms of good games. They all came out good. At number 5, I had Elden Ring. Elden Ring was a cultural phenomenon last year, and it kind of continues to have that effect, honestly. it won Game of the Year at the Game Awards a month ago. But beyond that, it just, sort of took the gaming world by storm. Everyone knew that it was highly anticipated, that it could be very good, but of course, I think it, even exceeded most people's expectations. It certainly exceeded mine. I put it at 5 on my list because I thought it looked cool, and I had never really got into the Dark Souls or From Software titles before, and I thought an open world version of that might be my thing, more my thing than their more sort of linear, restricted games like Dark Souls. And it was. I really enjoyed Elden Ring and continue to enjoy Elden Ring because I still have not finished that game, you guys. You probably, those of you who've been around the channel for a while, you probably know I'm notorious for actually not finishing games. I play a lot of different games, but I rarely see them through to the end. But I'm still going on Elden Ring. I still go back to it every now and again and play some more. So, but what a towering achievement of world design. The setting is just endlessly breathtaking. Around every corner, there's just crazy, weird, cool stuff to discover. And yes, it's hard. Yes, it can be punishing. Some of those boss fights suck, but the beauty of the open world structure of Elden Ring is, of course, that if you're, banging your head against something and just not making any progress, you can just go somewhere else, find some other horizon to explore, delve into some other cave somewhere, and you'll find something cool, hand-authored, fascinating, and weird, And so I just, as someone who, I enjoy engaging combat in games, but more I enjoy exploration and discovery. Man, that game nails that. And it doesn't feel oppressive. I mean, like, tonally, it's kind of oppressive. But, I mean, it has moments of great beauty as well. From like a gameplay standpoint, it doesn't feel oppressive. So, yeah, Elden Ring is number 5 on my list last year. In retrospect, it's probably number 1 on my list from last year. Or, yeah, probably is. I'd say. At number 4, Pokemon Legends Arceus. This was another one that was very interesting. It was a big departure for Nintendo or Game Freak from their typical Pokemon formula, and I really appreciated it for that. But it's another one that I kind of bounced off of. I like what they were doing. I like how they took a lot of that and melded that with the traditional Pokemon structure later in the year with Scarlet and Violet. But Arceus just felt a bit too empty, a bit too sparse, a bit too janky in its environments for me to really enjoy. Because like I just said, it's kind of like I really enjoy discovery and I enjoy rewarding exploration, whether I'm rewarded with a beautiful vista, whether I'm rewarded with some interesting story or lore, rewarded with interesting items. I like exploring handcrafted worlds and then feeling like my penchant for exploration is being acknowledged by the developers when I find cool stuff in out of the way places. Arceus was not that. Arceus, the environments were exceptionally boring. It did some cool stuff. It really did do some cool stuff. But, with Pokemon battling, just sort of this openish world Pokemon kind of game. But I think I need a little more meat on that world for it to really grab me. I may yet go back to it. We'll see. At my number 3 spot last year was Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, which did not have a name yet at that time. Since then, we know now that it's called the Tears of the Kingdom, and we also know it did not come out last year. They had not said it would, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe they did, I think it did get officially delayed, but I don't know if they ever actually gave it an official release date last year. Anyway, it now has a full name and release date. Tears of the Kingdom will be coming out May 12th, 2023, and it definitely makes my list for this year. At number 2 was one that I think surprised many. It was Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons. This was the third expansion for long-running MMO Guild Wars 2. It's one of my favorite games, my favorite MMO. And I've been playing it since it released back in 2012. And they did a fantastic job with End of Dragons. They did a wonderful job of the new areas. The new maps are beautiful, really, really cool to explore, engaging. Cool meta events where they bring together hundreds of players. And pretty good job with the new classes, the elite specs that they added. It varies from class to class, but some good stuff in there. Excellent story. Really well done story. And just more of what makes Guild Wars 2 great, which is this, action-oriented combat. A broad selection of really cool classes to pick from, gorgeous environments, awesome mounts, really cool art direction, and just being an MMO that you don't have to know life. Like, you can play Guild Wars 2 quite casually, which is what I really appreciate. You can log in for a little bit each day, just chip away. That game respects your time, and I would say End of Dragons continues that trend for the most part. So, overall, actually, Guild Wars 2 and its developer ArenaNet had a banger year in 2022. They had a couple of rough years through the first pandemic years there. And there's some speculation that the game was dying and was going to go into maintenance mode and stuff, but they came out swinging. End of Dragons, awesome expansion. They have all kinds of content plans coming up. They released on Steam in 2022, finally, and that really helped grow the player base. So, like, ArenaNet, I would say, is putting out the best content they've ever put out for that game, and it's really healthy and vital right now with this re-energized player base. Lots of cool stuff on the roadmap to come. So I'm feeling more hyped and hopeful about the future of that MMO Guild Wars 2 than I have for a long time. So yeah, I totally think it deserved its place on my list there last year. ArenaNet delivered. Last number 1 game on my list last year was Starfield. This is, of course, Bethesda's space opus that they've been working on for years now. And it was supposed to launch last November. Pretty firm release date for last November. It did not launch last November, as we all know. Starfield was delayed into the first half of this year, first half of 2023. Everything they've said about that game, everything I've seen about that game, it looks like a Bethesda game. It looks like Skyrim and Fallout in space. And you know what? I'm so down for that. I do hope that it feels like they've modernized their design a little bit. Because, they've been building games that way since essentially Morrowind, So it does feel a little stale in some ways, but it also feels very familiar and very comfortable. So I'm hoping that it feels like an evolution of the Bethesda Game Studios, design ethos. Anyway, not much more to say about that other than the fact that I'm still really excited about it, and it's definitely going to show up on this year's list, as you'll find out in just a few minutes. So, with all that said, 2022, it was a good year for games. It was a maybe slightly sparse year for AAA games, lots of delays out of 2023, but the games that did make it out, lots of them very solid. So, yeah, I think last year's list of anticipated games was met pretty well with solid releases, enjoyable experiences, except for, yeah, a few of those that got pushed out to this year. Speaking of this year, 2023, what games we got coming out this year? Well, I have 10 games on my list here, which we'll go through. And I've also got a handful of honorable mentions, which I did last year as well, but I didn't talk about them just now because otherwise this would be a very long video. But let's talk about this year's honorable mentions. The honorable mentions are not ranked in any particular order. They're just alphabetical, I guess. So, first honorable mention that I'm looking forward to this year. Atomic Heart. Atomic Heart. This is an immersive first-person shooter that's been in development for many years now by a developer called Mundfish. And I first saw it in the context of a graphics demo for ray tracing effects back when the 2000 series, NVIDIA's 2000 series cards, I guess, around their launch, when they were hyping up ray tracing. Like, look at all the cool stuff ray tracing can do. And this game, Atomic Heart, was one of their demo pieces. It seems to have had a somewhat long and troubled development since then, but it's got a release date. It's coming out this February 21st. And if I were to describe it, like tonally, in like 2 words, it would be Soviet Bioshock. That's what it looks like. It's got some crazy enemy designs. It's got some wild powers. You've got the weapon and the power in one hand and the other. I don't know anything about the story. I just know the setting looks fascinating. The enemies look fascinating. The graphics look lovely. And I could definitely be up for some crazy Soviet Bioshock-like gameplay. So, yeah, that's coming out this February 21st, 2023 on PS4 and 5, Xbox Series, as well as Xbox One and PC. So they're covering last-gen and current-gen consoles, it looks like. Next up, in my honorable mentions, this actually made my honorable mentions last year as well, and that is Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. This game is being published by Ubisoft, developed by Massive Entertainment. They have the Division games, and they showed us, I think at E3 2021, a pretty cool looking gameplay-ish kind of trailer. Looks gorgeous. This is, of course, set in the Avatar universe, James Cameron's Avatar universe. The Blue People, the Na'vi, which just got a new film not too long before the time of recording here, which I still haven't seen, actually. My fiancée Sarah and I were almost went and watched it tonight, actually, but I ended up other plans. But I do intend to see it because I really did enjoy the first Avatar film back in, what was it, 2009, something like that. Yeah, I know it was basically Pocahontas in space, but watching that thing in 3D in the movie theaters was like just such a cool experience. I felt so immersed in that setting. So I could see a game in that setting being really good. I don't think we know much about it other than the setting. I don't think they've showed much in the way of gameplay and stuff, so I don't know. We'll see. But I am, yeah, looking forward to see more of what that game is. Evidently, that's coming out on current gen consoles, so PS5, Series X, and PC, sometime this year. So they say. I'm gonna say there's a solid chance that game slips into 2024, just based on how little we've seen of it, and the fact that they have not even committed to like a quarter of this year yet. But we'll see. We'll see. Next on my list of honorable mentions is Hades 2, This game was only just announced actually at the Game Awards in December. And this is a direct sequel to Hades by Supergiant, which is an awesome roguelite, which, again, I must admit I have not finished, but I played a good chunk of it, and I really, really enjoyed. Supergiant has such tight designs and such excellent art direction, and Hades delivered on both those fronts incredibly well. Really addictive, run-based, excellent story, excellent voice acting, excellent music. Darren Korb's soundtrack is such a banger for Hades. So Hades 2 kind of looks like it's going to be more of that. And what they've shown so far looks beautiful. The music sounds great. The art direction looks even better, if that's possible. And I'm here for more. So, yeah, looking forward to Hades 2. It's supposed to hit early access on PC sometime in 2023. But we don't know when. And a 1.0 launch, I suspect, will be at least a year out from the early access launch. So, but I don't mind so much in a game like that playing in early access. So anyway, we'll see. And the last game on my honorable mentions list here is one called Witchfire. Witchfire. And now this is a game developed by the Astronauts, whom you might know for a game called The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, which was a very cool, spooky, kind of weird mystery game that came out, gosh, a long time ago now. Not even sure, maybe a decade ago. Something like that. Very atmospheric, very pretty, very moody. A cool game. Witchfire looks to be pretty different. Witchfire is very much in the vein of like Doom or Serious Sam or gosh, what's the other series that I just had in my head that's Painkiller? Looks a lot like Painkiller. It's a first-person shooter, sort of like fighting hordes of monsters, but it looks gorgeous. The weapons look crazy. The enemies look crazy. The graphics and lighting especially look really, really beautiful. And I'm definitely up for shooting a bunch of monsters. So I think that one looks really cool. That was supposed to be coming out once again on PC in early access in the earlier part of this year. So I hope that delivers. I hope that's good. All right, well, here we are, a half hour into the video, and I'm only just getting to my top 10 for 2023. Wouldn't be an ASMR nerd video without an exceedingly long preamble. So let's start. At number 10, I have Nightingale. Nightingale. This is a game that was showcased at the Xbox and Bethesda press conference in the E3 window this past year. And it is a survival craft, first-person survival craft shooter set in fantasy realms, but you are a Victorian era individual. I think you're called a realm walker. So it's got this like Victorian steampunk fantasy vibe. And it's like you're going through portals to different fantasy realms, and you're building bases, and you're, collecting and gathering resources, and you're fighting monsters. It is co-op, although evidently that's optional, so you can play it single player. It's not an MMO, that's for sure. So, but it looks really cool. Some of the creature designs are very striking. The environments look beautiful. The character designs are really cool, and I just love like Victorian steampunk fantasy survival craft first person. It all just sounds really neat. So I hope they can deliver on it, and I hope it doesn't just feel like a generic survival craft kind of game. I hope it feels, quirky in the way that it looks. hope the gameplay matches the weirdness of the setting and the visuals. That's being developed by Inflection Games, which evidently was founded by some ex-BioWare folks. Has a lot of ex-BioWare people there. So there's some good talent there, some good pedigree. And that will be coming to PC in early access this year, in the first half of the year, evidently. They're aiming for an early access launch. It's another type of game where I don't mind too much early access, because I don't think it's like heavily story driven. If it's, kind of Valheim-like in that way, I don't mind at all. So at number 9, I have Remnant 2. This is the sequel to Remnant from the Ashes, I believe it's called, which came out a few years back. I want to say maybe 2017, 2018, which is a third-person shooter set in sort of a post-apocalyptic setting. But it's got a very Dark Soulsian structure to it. So, third-person post-apocalyptic Dark Souls with guns would be a reductive way of describing it. But the cool thing about it was it had a really tightly integrated co-op. And so I actually played a good chunk of it with a good buddy of mine, and we had a lot of fun. The game was very polished, really interesting, some very cool settings and story stuff. And some of that cool, like, emergent lore in the way that, like a Dark Souls game has, where it's not hitting you over the head with story, but you're learning it through sort of environmental storytelling and information about the items you pick up and stuff. So, and it played really smooth. It had some really good boss encounters, some cool mechanics, and it was just a real blast in co-op. So, Remnant 2, they showed off a trailer. I think maybe it might have been the Game Awards where they debuted that trailer once again. And it looks like taking everything that Remnant did and just like cranks it up to 11. There's just more, and it's bigger and crazier. There's a huge diversity from what they showed in terms of environments and monster types and stuff. So yeah, I'm here for it. That sounds like a really fun co-op romp. That is developed by Gunfire Games and is planned for PS5, Xbox Series X, and PC with a date TBA. So we don't know. Sometime this year. That one might slip as well, but we'll see. Looks good anyway. At number 8 on this list, I have another Warhammer game, not Total War this time, but instead Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. The original Space Marine game was simple, stupid fun. It was a very linear, like it was kind of Gears of War-y in its design. I want to say it was of that era, but smashier. There's a lot of smashing, and it was just a good fun romp, a really fun action game. It didn't try to be anything more than what it was, and yeah, pretty simple, pretty light, pretty fluff, but it was good. And that was back in, I want to say around 2012ish, maybe. And so Space Marine 2, the long-awaited sequel, it looks like it's once again just kind of taking that ethos and amping it up, which I'm all about. It looks pretty good, except this time you're fighting Tyranids, which sounds pretty cool to me as well. I used to be a Tyranids player when I played 40k. I had an army with a friend. And so, yeah, I'm up for boltering some NIDs, chain sorting some NIDs. That is being developed by Saber Interactive, coming out on current-gen consoles and PC with a date of TBA also. So, could slip from this year. Any of these games could slip from this year. But that one, any game without any announced release window beyond 2023 I'm immediately suspicious of. But we'll see. Looking forward to smashing stuff, shooting things. Number 7, Assassin's Creed Mirage. So back in, I'll say October, maybe, Ubisoft had a big Assassin's Creed stream where they talked about the future of the franchise. And one of the big things that they announced was that they are essentially splitting the main franchise. One branch will continue on the route that the last few games have taken, which is to say big, sprawling, open-world action RPGs in the vein of Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. The other half is going to follow sort of backtrack, really, to be closer to the original Assassin's Creed games, which is to say, a more confined area, more focus on actual stealthing and assassinating, and just a more sort of reduced scope in terms of the area that's covered, and so Assassin's Creed Mirage is going to be taking place in 9th century Baghdad, I believe, and it is one of these more focused down kind of experiences designed to be more like the older Assassin's Creed games. Now, I know that many people feel that Assassin's Creed has lost its way with these larger open world games of the last few years. Personally, I really like the new design. I enjoyed Assassin's Creed back in the day, but boy, I've played the crap out of these newer ones, more than I ever played those older ones. That's just me, the kind of games that I like to play. I like RPG-oriented open world experiences, but I also really understand the criticisms leveled at these newer games, which is that you're not really doing much assassinating anymore. You're mostly just running in, chopping dudes up with swords. It's not so stealth oriented. You can play it stealthy if you want, and as a matter of fact, I typically do, but you certainly don't have to. So a lot of people feel like Assassin's Creed sort of lost its identity with these last few games. So I suspect those folks should be quite excited about Mirage, and despite the fact that I really like these newer Assassin's Creed games, I'm also very excited for a return to that older style, which I think will feel a bit fresher. And now that we've been going down this open world path for some time. So, Assassin's Creed Mirage, that's being developed, of course, by Ubisoft, coming out on current gen PlayStations and Xboxes, as well as last gen and PC. That date, TBA. But I bet you there's a solid chance that does come out this year. I think that game is probably scoped in such a way that they know more or less that they can deliver on that this year. Word on the street was that game started life as a DLC for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and then it kind of grew into its own thing, and they decided to make it this standalone product. So I bet you we'll see that this year. Yeah, looking forward to it. At number 6 on my list, hey, Baldur's Gate 3 is back. Last year it made number 7. This year it's inched up to number 6. Still excited to see what that is. Larian obviously doing some amazing work with the Divinity games lately. That is a PC exclusive, and it is apparently scheduled for a 1.0 release in August. So I'm very keen to see the triumphant return of Baldur's Gate 3. Always up for a good D&D based adventure romp. So we'll see. But I really hope they actually do deliver 1.0 this year, because I've been waiting for that one for a long time. At number 5, this I had to think long and hard about. Hogwarts Legacy. This is obviously a Harry Potter game being developed by Avalanche Software. Not the same Avalanche that does the Just Cause games, but rather the Avalanche that does, or did, the Disney Infinity games. So they've got a bit of pedigree there. This game's coming out on pretty much everything, current gen and last gen consoles, PC, and even a Switch release. They've got a bit of a staggered release schedule planned, but the first ones are coming out on February 10th, and those are the current gen consoles and PC versions, with the other ones to follow. From what I've seen of this game, and they've showed a lot of it, a lot of gameplay trailers, a lot of just ambiance trailers. It looks amazing. It looks like the devs have put an incredible amount of work into fully realizing what I think is like the Hogwarts game that I always wanted, and or the Harry Potter game that I always wanted, and that I think many others have always wanted, where you can really live the fantasy of being a wizard in the wizarding world, right? The graphics look gorgeous. It's a big open world situation where, heck, you can go around on your broomstick. You can fly around on Griffin. There's just all kinds of stuff they showed off. It looks big. It looks extremely ambitious, and from what they've shown, it looks very impressive. The whole Harry Potter thing has been tainted for me, at least, by things that J.K. Rowling has said and stuff that she's stood up for that I don't believe in or agree with. I don't want to get into that here because it's not really the venue for it. And so that has certainly, I still don't know how I reconcile that with like my excitement for this game. There's obviously the argument about separating the art from the artist and all those sorts of things, but everybody's gonna have to look inside themselves and make their own decisions about that, I guess. And some people may care more, some people may care less. It's a tough thing. For me, like I said, I'm still struggling with that, and I honestly don't know where. Like, I want to play it really bad, but I don't want to, support J.K. Rowling necessarily. Anyway, this isn't, like I said, not really the venue, but if I'm being completely honest, from a purely objective standpoint, we just divorce it from that whole thing. I think the game itself looks killer, and I think that it looks like the devs have put a huge amount of work into it. So, if nothing else, I'm very, very curious to see if it can live up to the expectations that it's been laying. One really cool thing that I've noticed that they've done actually is they have ASMR videos that they have made, the developers, of like environmental ambience of various settings in the game. So like the developers are basically getting in ahead of creators like me and are creating ASMR content before the game's even out. And it's really nice. It's very, very chill. It basically takes the kind of relaxing wandering template that I've been doing forever, and it just it applies that to their game, but no talking. They don't have any voiceover or anything, so it's just like environmental ambience. But I think that was pretty cool to see that they are clearly marketing to the ASMR community that way as well. So yeah, that's their number 5 on my list. Number 4, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. This is a sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which came out in 2018, 19, something like that. Following the adventures of Cal Kestis, a Jedi survivor after the Purge, after Order 66. Another game that I played a good chunk of the way through, still haven't finished. I actually went back to it over the holidays and played some more, and I intend to finish it before Jedi Survivor comes out. But really excellent game, like probably the best Star Wars game to come out for quite some time. It feels, I think for me, it has the most sort of essence of the original trilogy. I think it does a really good job of bridging original trilogy and prequel trilogy kind of vibes, but it definitely feels to me like kind of spiritually similar to the old Jedi Knight games. Granted, mechanically pretty different. The combat is much more deliberate, slower paced. Once again, I will invoke Dark Souls combat here because it takes a big inspiration from that more deliberate Dark Souls style combat, and actually the world design as well. You have your meditation points, which are basically your bonfires. You're doing the thing where you're progressing through an area, unlocking a shortcut that lets you loop back around, and you get these sort of interconnected environments, right? Anyway, Star Wars Jedi Survivor looks like it is pushing that template further. It looks like there's more lightsaber fighting styles, which I'm very excited for because I think the lightsaber combat in that game was very good. It looks like there's more traversal options. Looks like there's more story and characters coming in. Cal Kestis grew a beard. One of my favorite things about Jedi Survivor is the performances by the main character, the actor whose name I forget, but who acts Cal. He does a great job, and they have some really good mocap there, and his whole gang as well, really well done. So I'm looking forward to more of that in Jedi Survivor. Sorry, did I say Survivor? I meant Fallen Order before. Anyway, you know what I mean. I'm looking forward to seeing more of that character and more of those performances. That is, of course, being developed by Respawn Entertainment, published by EA, coming out on current-gen consoles and PC. And it's coming pretty soon. It's got a release date of March 17th, so don't have to wait too long for some more Star Wars. I'm really glad we're finally getting some good Star Wars games because there's such a drought there, and Star Wars games were such a huge part of my childhood, from like X-Wing and TIE Fighter to the Jedi Knight games to Empire of War, Pod Racer, so many great Star Wars games. KOTOR, of course. Yeah. So, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Looking forward to it. 3 games remain on the list, my friends. In the number 3 spot, and this is going to be controversial because many of you would put this at number 1, but in the number 3 spot, I have The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I really enjoyed Breath of the Wild. I never finished Breath of the Wild. Do you notice the theme here? Will I finish Breath of the Wild before Tears of the Kingdom comes out? I'm not sure. But as I've been talking about throughout this video, I really do enjoy games that reward exploration. And man, Breath of the Wild, I mean, it was iconic in that sense. And it was such a gutsy departure for the Zelda series that really went on to influence many games that have released in the past 6 years. And just such a beautiful game on Switch of all places, right? So anyway, Tears of the Kingdom is a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild. That is uncommon in Zelda, of course. But I do think that it is warranted, given that the template that Breath of the Wild set down was so successful, so revolutionary for a Zelda game especially. Tears of the Kingdom definitely looks to be a darker kind of tone, a darker story, which honestly, a darker Zelda game could be really interesting. And I don't mean darker in a Majora's Mask way, but in a almost survival horror-y sort of way. I doubt this will be that, but this will be very much in the Breath of the Wild template. But just imagine Imagine if it was like Elden Ring, like totally like Elden Ring meets Zelda, Breath of the Wild meets Elden Ring. Imagine something like that. I think what they've showed, it's not going to be that, but I hope it is a little darker because I think that'd be really cool for Zelda to explore. And they've showed some interesting new abilities. Clearly, there's going to be some like time manipulation stuff. There's going to be some sky islands, which is pretty cool. We'll see. I bet you it'll be really good. Will it be able to live up to expectations? Hard to say. Breath of the Wild is a pretty hard act to follow, but we'll see. I bet it'll be good. That's being developed, of course, by Nintendo and coming out exclusively on Nintendo Switch on May 12th. May 12th, which to me seems so soon, but man, that game is like Breath of the Wild. I mean, it's like 6 years old now, so, or will be soon. So, I guess it's time. I know some people have been waiting for a very long time. My number 2 game, Diablo 4. Diablo 4. I have been a fan of the Diablo games since the late 90s. That is when I first played Diablo 1, and Diablo, like the series, has been more than just games to me. Like the aesthetic of Diablo informed my like early teenage years, and like honestly, I think like kind of my identity in some ways. Like I know that sounds really edgelordy and lame, but like I just really like that aesthetic. I like the the grimdark stuff, especially at that time, and so, but I also loved the games for the gameplay. Like I honestly think that those games are what led me into like metal music and stuff, which all that was and is a big part of my my identity. So anyway, a new game in the Diablo series, always a major event. Diablo 3, somewhat disappointing at launch. I think I got to a good place eventually, especially after the Reaper of Souls expansion. I played a hell of a lot of it in the years following that expansion. Definitely lost some of its identity along the way. I'm much more a fan of the Diablo 1 and 2 aesthetic. But Diablo 3 does have delightfully fluid gameplay, some really fun abilities, and much more of an end game than Diablo 2 did. Diablo 4 looks to be taking the best elements of Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 and trying to come up with something that's kind of a compromise while hopefully pushing it forward a little bit as a series. Aesthetically, I think what we've seen of Diablo 4 looks really good. Gameplay-wise, it looks good. It looks more Diablo 3-ish than Diablo 2-ish, but maybe not quite so over the top as Diablo 3. A game like Diablo 4 is going to live and die largely by its itemization as well. We have yet to see exactly how that's going to pan out. Diablo 2, as far as I'm concerned, is the high water mark for itemization in action RPGs. But hopefully they've taken some lessons from Diablo 2 for Diablo 4. I haven't played any of the beta events for Diablo 4. Haven't got into any of them, but no doubt there will be some open betas coming up in advance of the June 6th launch date. I really hope it's good. I really hope it's good because, man, Diablo Immortal, I said the dirty name, Diablo Immortal was a step in the wrong direction from my opinion, my perspective. I'm sure it's made them a boatload of money, but like as a longtime Diablo player, that's not what I want. So we'll see. Cautiously optimistic, but I really would love a good new Diablo game. I've been playing a lot of Diablo 2 Resurrected lately, which, I mean, I've beat that game 1,000 times. I've leveled characters to 99. I've spent ages doing bail runs and item hunting and whatnot, but it still has its hooks in me. Like 20 whatever years later, I still do enjoy that game an awful lot. So yeah, it'd be nice if Diablo 4 came and gave me something fresh that felt just as good. That is, of course, being developed by Blizzard, with all the baggage that entails. The itemization, pardon me, not itemization, monetization of Diablo 4 is, a point of a lot of contention. They're going to have a battle pass. We'll have a premium version that you can pay for. We'll have an item store where you can buy items, but they claim it's going to be exclusively cosmetic. All the items you can buy, all the items on the premium battle pass, just cosmetic. If that's the case, okay. It doesn't feel good in a game that has, that's a full price title up front, but I can certainly live with just aesthetic stuff for sale. It still feels greedy, but if it means that they do keep producing a lot of high quality post-release content, if having a stupid item shop and premium battle pass is what's required for them to produce that post-release content at a good clip, then I guess so be it. That's the world we live in these days, right? But we'll see. Hopefully they don't go any more predatory than that in the monetization department. That is having a launch across both last gen and current gen consoles and PC all at the same time, which is a first for a Diablo game, on June 6th. My number one game, you can guess it. You've probably already guessed it. It's the same as it was last year. It is freaking Starfield. I am so fascinated by what that game is. I really, really hope, like I was saying, that they take the best parts of a Bethesda Game Studios design and then they push those yet further. I want something that feels expansive in the ways you want it to, that feels handcrafted in the ways you want it to, that has a riveting story. Maybe my expectations are too high. Maybe Bethesda can't deliver on all that, but I still believe that there's a certain Bethesda Game Studios magic that all their games have had to some extent or another. Skyrim is, just one of the greatest games ever. Fallout 4 was, I think, very good. I know some fans were somewhat disappointed because it played it very safe, and it did. It was a very rote Bethesda Game Studios RPG, but it still has that Bethesda something to it. It's a combination of their world design, their environmental storytelling, and just the way they let you inhabit that world, and the atmosphere they can conjure. Fallout 76, we don't really talk about Fallout 76, but you know what? Even 76, despite all its warts and despite being co-developed by other Bethesda studios, it still has something. Like, you play it, you explore those environments, it feels, it just has a quality to it. Bethesda knows how to build environments and places. And yeah, I know people, like, oh, more environmental storytelling. Oh, look, it's another skeleton on a toilet or whatever. But maybe I'm just a sucker for that kind of stuff, but I freaking love the environmental storytelling that Bethesda does, the sense of place that they create. And I just want more of that. Taking that and applying it to a space opera in the style of like a Mass Effect kind of setting, bring it on. From what they've shown, I'm just so excited for Starfield. I love the ship building and customization stuff. I really hope that feels meaningful and substantial. I love that you can have a crew. I similarly hope that feels meaningful and substantial in the way that, like, Mass Effect style companion quests does. Over 1,000 planets or whatever they're advertising. Many of those I'm sure will be empty and boring, but the parts that are handcrafted, I really hope feel good. And the themes of the story that Todd Howard has talked about really intrigue me. Talking about trying to answer the great questions of existence and like reality and these kinds of questions. There'll probably be some ancient aliens in there somewhere. Like there's got to be, right? But you know what? I'm cool with that. I'm a sucker for that stuff. So bring it on. So I say, bring it on. Todd Howard, Bethesda Game Studios, blow me away with Starfield. I am so ready. Besides that, Starfield launching finally means that Bethesda can move on to the Elder Scrolls 6. Oh my god. Which is, even further and above any of these games I want to play. More than anything, probably. Because the Elder Scrolls series has just been so near and dear to my heart for so long. But, that's a long way away yet. If Starfield does in fact ship in the first half of 2023, I don't think we're going to see Elder Scrolls 4, or Elder Scrolls, 6, until at the earliest 2026, I'm going to say, but probably beyond that. That's a depressing thought, but, I'll live. Hopefully Starfield will tide me over. And that, my friends, completes my top 10 games, top 10 most anticipated games of 2023, as well as a little reflection, retrospective on my top games, my anticipated games from 2022. I think the 2022 list panned out pretty good. I think those were some good picks. I was pretty happy with everything there. I really hope, that the same comes to pass for 2023's list here. But I guess I'll see you guys in a year from now. We will be back here reflecting on the games of 2023, whether these were good picks, whether this list justified itself. Maybe there'll be some great scandal. Maybe one of these games is just an absolute train wreck. Or maybe some of them are just absolute classics, instant classics that just knock it out of the park. I prefer to think it's going to be the latter. But who's to say? The future is undecided. But we will reconvene here a year from now, and we will discuss. My friends, I'd love to hear from you down in the comments what your most anticipated games of the year are. So feel free to share. Let me know and discuss my picks as well. Let me know if there's anything that I was an idiot for forgetting or that you can't believe I didn't include. But keep it civil. But I would love to hear what your picks for this year are. Hey, while you're down there, don't forget to check out that link from this video's sponsor, Into the AM. They have some awesome clothes for you. You're going to freaking love them. They're beautiful, they're comfortable, they're easy to take care of, and you can save 10% off your entire order. What's not to love? Links down below. Check them out. All right, my friends, thank you very much for joining me for this very rambly look ahead at the games to come this year. I appreciate you being here. I hope you enjoyed this, and I look very forward to having you back here next time. Bye for now, guys.